So for anyone who has been following my community posts, you knew this was coming. A YouTuber who currently goes by the name of Legand2.0, also known as TheLegand, has caught the eye of many YouTubers, including me, and not for the right reasons. Their activities not only on YouTube, including posting great polls, including minors, but also the degenerate behavior on Discord and the return again on YouTube, as their current name would tell you, is beyond abhorrent, including accessing and sending CP, which for ones who don't know, child porn. You would get the idea. In this video today, I will be exposing this pedophilic creep, whom we'll to refer to as TheLegand for and pronunciation wise as well, for the sake of convenience, and also that's because his name. All the evidence and receipts are compiled into a doc, which will be linked in the description, alongside all the posts, which I will refer to in this video. And major thanks to Jason and Sinister for helping me collect the evidence against this creep, and to everyone who has helped through any means to spread awareness about this creep. Their channels will also be mentioned in the description, so hit us up to them. It starts off around 12 to 13 May of me coming across two disturbing polls of TheLegand, which asked people whom they would choose to grape, both of which consisting with options of minors who were minors both by age and also they looked like minors, therefore by appearance as well. So I decided to make a community post to call this disgusting behavior out and asked everyone to report them. Interestingly enough, one of the comments made by one of my Discord friends now and a viewer from before made an accusation on TheLegand for sending CP, the short form for what I mentioned, to his friend Sinister in Discord DMs. And funnily enough, TheLegand cared enough to reply in DMs and not deny the accusations. This led me to investigate more, and thanks to the help of Jason and his Sinister in collecting the evidence, what came after cemented the fact that this guy didn't make a grape poll of minors out of just some ignorance or to just look cool. I get evidence of receipts confirming what Jason said about TheLegand sending a picture of a grown man and a girl in a not so appropriate picture. The picture will be blurred on YouTube for sake to not expose everyone to the explicit picture, and also because YouTube will not exactly appreciate it, but you can check the doc for yourself, linked in the description to see the evidence if you're interested. Sinister is confused and asks Legand on what is it, and Legand says, note this, CP, well, kinda, blocking him immediately afterwards. The other receipts combined with his predatory polls already, including talking about a 12-year-old character named Sherry in an inappropriate manner and him doing something disgusting, while referencing her and making a quote-unquote smash and pass on Discord with her picture, had confirmed beyond a doubt that TheLegand is absolutely a pedophile, both concrete evidence of him having sent CP, and also all the other posts and messages of his alongside addressing minors in a sexual and disgusting manner prove his pedophilic nature. I, alongside other YouTubers, made posts exposing him with the receipts and asking for him to be banned, where a lot of people showed support, and on 18 May, or 17 May time zone wise, TheLegand's channel was terminated for good, until on the same date, another channel popped up, and as you would guess, he was back, under the name of Legand 2.0. Very conveniently, barely a day after TheLegand was banned, the same new account was created on the same day practically. By the name of the same pedophile that got terminated, he tries to defend himself that it's not him because it looks cool. That's the reason he's given for naming himself after a confirmed pedophile, and that his community posts aren't about grape like TheLegand. He also proceeds to downplay the severity of a grape poll of minors and calls them to be not that deep just because they're on CP videos. Keep all these details in mind, by the way, and to give context, on his new channel, he had a poll of a 14-year-old Ellie in The Last of Us 1, with the poll asking smash or pass, just like with example of Sherry mentioned above. He justifies this, like in my comments, by saying that it's not a grape poll. In the very above post, he also states that since in his area the age of consent is 14, it's okay. So far, he tries to act that he isn't the legend by saying that he took the name on purpose and it's cool, and that he wouldn't be stupid enough to return, and that his community posts aren't about grape, and that in his region the age of consent is 14. There's so much wrong with this that I had to recharge my brain for a good while. Let's start with the obvious one. Now, imagine if I was a new person on YouTube, and I know that a person like, let's say, EDP is a pedophile. So tell me, why the hell would I choose to take the name of EDP 2.0 instead of taking any other name in the world? Don't you think that I would want to not associate with a pedophile in any manner whatsoever? To take the name of a creep who he himself states to have CP videos is straight up brain dead, and no sane and minimally intelligent person who cares for the slightest bit about how they would want to be perceived and their own sense of self and conscience would do so. About why would he be stupid enough to return? It's because he wanted to make a statement on how no matter how many of us report him and how many times, he will always come back and continue his degenerate activities. Thus, he basically wanted to laugh at us. Right here, one of the comments of a post which states his old account being terminated, and a post which he states that he returned, he basically tells people to shut up, and just to clarify, shut up, the full form of SYBAU-ish, shut your bitch up, therefore shut up, and also lol in response to the account being gone of the legend. Now imagine if I were to be wrongfully accused of something, I would try to prove myself innocent instead of telling people to shut up, or instead of typing lol on a post where it stated that a pedophile is banned, which would clearly indicate amusement and defiance. I would type anything else which just expresses joy at the ban of the pedophile. Now, before I address the shambolic defenses using the age of consent of their region as an excuse, alongside their excuse of their posts not being great posts, I'd like to forcefully establish and prove that this creep is the legend without any doubt, so that they cannot deflect accountability of their previous actions like accessing and sending CP and having great polls on his community posts, including minors. So first of all, he seems to be very adamant on defending this pedophile despite him being a confirmed creep, which is explained further as he now decides to change his stance on the legend having CP, kind of, to him not giving CP to random people like Sinister OP, and that he showed fake CP. So remember the previous screenshot of the legend sending that picture to Sinister? First of all, if they weren't friends or at least connected in any way, why would the legend DM Sinister that picture, believing that it's CP, as he said, and I quote again, CP, well kind of. And note everyone, this man has no problems associating himself with someone who has CP, as a statement confirms doesn't give CP to random people. So it means that the legend has CP and yet he chooses to defend him? For someone whose account was just made a day after his ban, it's also interesting that he is immediately able to find the channels like mine, which spoke against the legend. Don't you think the algorithm would suggest videos of popular people to just someone new on the app, instead of posts of small YouTubers like me? Which raises the question, how did he know about our channels, or even this entire thing? Either he was told by the legend if they're supposedly two different people, thus they're friends with a pedophile who has access to CP, or, as it would be obvious, the legend and this guy, Legand 2.0, are the same person. And then another thread of comments under another post, we both argue, and here's where this creep slipped up real bad and damned himself absolutely concretely. But before this, I need you all to remember the post where I exposed him for sending CP. A key detail to note is that since on YouTube I wasn't sure that my post would slide without YouTube finding it objectionable, I had blurred out the contents of the picture, so to also not subject people to the explicit content. That means that unless someone had seen the image themselves, they wouldn't have any way to tell the exact contents of the image. Keep that in mind. Yuri tries to argue that the image sent by the legend isn't CP, and that there are a lot of images of and I quote, daughter and dad kissing. Now, as you can see in the image and with the previously established context, If he supposedly didn't know the image, then how could he tell the exact contents of the image? Now, here's where I made a mistake, as later it occurred to me that in one of my replies to him, I did mention a grown man and a girl being in an appropriate way in a picture in one of the ways. So, naturally, you would expect this man to refute me by showing where I stated it, thus explaining how he would know about it through my reply, right? Well, not this guy. Because instead of showing the example where I stated it in one of the replies, like explaining how he would know about the contents of the picture, he first dodges the question and still argues that the image isn't CP, and when he answers I last, his response is, "Cause I know him." So let me get this straight. He knows his friend who has access to CP really well. So again, this guy is okay with being friends with a pedophile who has access to CP. Instead of refuting my accusation by showing where I leaked the content subtly in reply, which would prove his innocence in that specific question, he chooses to still defend his friend even when he couldn't have known the exact content of the picture. Because how does that explain him knowing the exact contents of the picture? It's one thing to know the nature of the actions of your friends and certain exact actions, but it's a whole another thing to know this kind of exact action of your friend to the point you know the exact contents of the picture. And something else to consider is his wording of daughter and dad kissing, when even in my reply I just stated a grown man and a girl. For all he knows, it could have been an old man or a young adult who didn't look anything like a dad. How could he have possibly known the exact nature of the image and the term of daughter and dad? He must have seen the image, and therefore there are only two ways. Either the legend sent him the image too, which means that he chose to not to speak up on any platform regarding this, or, as it would stand with everything stated, again, this guy is the legend who had the knowledge of the contents of the picture by sending Sinister that picture on Discord, the only way he could have known the exact contents of the picture. So, tell us, Legend, which is it? I pose all the questions in the screenshot, and as you can see, he tries to suddenly defend a Discord friend by saying that the legend is not created by him, thus saying that the Discord user Horror the Goat and the legend aren't the same person. First of all, that doesn't change the fact that the one on Discord has CP, because he clearly stated that he doesn't give CP to random people, thus giving them on Discord, especially with his Discord server mentioned with 200 people. So even Horror the Goat and the legend were different people. That still doesn't change the fact that this person associates with a pedophile who has CP, and it still doesn't explain how did he know about the contents of that picture, thus meaning that he would be Horror the Goat who has access to CP and sent it to Sinister. It's even worse, since if these two are different by his logic, while the legend made disgusting polls, Horror the Goat had CP, which would be more severe than making great polls of minors, which only shows the absurdity of his quote-unquote defense, which I can easily debunk with just a few more screenshots and prove that the legend and Horror the Goat are the same person. Right here, around 2 weeks before Sinister pinged the legend regarding the legend faking a debate by making a fake account of another YouTuber on Discord, the picture having the same username as Horror the Goat, one who sent CP to Sinister. In the comments, you can see the deleted comments of the legend due to the fact that this account was banned. But I must ask, if this isn't the ID of the legend, then why didn't the legend object to this? Why didn't he tell Sinister that this Discord ID wasn't his? He didn't tell, and we know this because of the reply of the username still handling, coding what the legend said. Now, to be fair, we can't see what the legend said exactly because of the comments gone, but since the other person is coding the legend, it means that the legend didn't raise any objections of the Discord ID not being his. And since no other replies came by him ahead, it means he was okay with the screenshot. Thus, Horror the Goat is his ID. Therefore, the legend and Horror the Goat are the same person. And the final nail in the coffin to prove that Legend 2.0 is the Legend, apart from the already concrete evidence of him slipping up and knowing the contents of the picture, which he only could have known by sending the picture to Sinister, him defending himself to this account, thus having no issues with a pedophile for someone who is supposedly different than the Legend, and someone who tries to argue that a picture of a girl kissing a grown man in a sexual manner isn't CP, his name and PFP being the same as the Legend, and him also knowing an awful lot for someone who just made a new account. With all of this already proving that this person is the same as the Legend, his texting style is also an awful lot similar to the Legend. Right here, DX user points out on how he censored the word grape, obviously said in different manner, in the same manner by placing a hash on one of the alphabets, except shifting the hash to P. Interesting for someone who is of Gen Z, given the fact that you are 17, given that you from you I mean the Legend is 17 years old and hasn't objected to Characteruniverse saying that. Instead of using the usual grape emoji to say the word in another way, very conveniently you choose to use the hash and in the same way too. Why? Oh, let me answer. Because you, both Legend and Legend 2.0, are the same person. More examples similar texting style are given, where spelling errors in his sentences and the grammatical errors had the same pattern, even setting the similar texting and sentence structure aside. Unless Legend 2.0 has powers beyond human comprehension, which allows him to pull all of this off, it's evident that the Legend 2.0 and the Legend, and of course Horror the Goat, are all the same person. One who made great polls of minors, one who tells people to shut up and confronted about returning, one who's posing as Legend 2.0 and defending the actions of himself, one who was able to track accounts like mine despite having a new YouTube account created because of him obviously being the pedo, him sending CP to Sinister and having access to more, and who tries to defame Sinister too. And of course to play us all as if we all are idiots. And also on his new channel to continue to hold the disgusting polls of asking people if they would smash past a 14-year-old. Now, before I address the symbolic defense of the age of consent thing, some people might generally try to question, even after the evidence, that couldn't have been possible that the R-word jokes could have been just, well, foul, but jokes out of ignorance, and perhaps that their age of consent part they're technically right to possibly. Well, I'll address the age of consent thing ahead, but to believe that their R-word jokes were just jokes, even with the fact that they had minors in those goddamn polls, there is evidence ahead to prove absolutely concrete that they weren't joking about it. But even if we were to ignore the evidence ahead, which I'll prove ahead and we'll do in the description, the fact that they consumed CP, which by definition, I'll repeat, portrays any child who hasn't reached the age of consent in any sexual manner, that is what CP qualifies at. And therefore, I have absolutely no reason to believe that he generally made those jokes out of ignorance or just trying to look cool, setting aside the fact that he already tried to, well, defend CP and his own actions. There's even evidence ahead that will prove it, but before that, I would like to address this specific age of consent thing, because I absolutely need to address it, and also paint why it's not okay to, well, depict such characters in sexual manners, even if the age of consent in his area, or anyone's area for that matter, is lower than, let's say, 18. His defense falls in the category of appeal to authority fallacy, and let me elaborate, because on a principle level, the age of consent is based on so much context, mainly cultural context like customs, social norms, alongside the physical, cognitive, and emotional development of a person in context with his social environment, and many other factors. And the keyword I'll repeat, culture of a region. Thus, this doesn't extend to YouTube because the culture of the region doesn't exactly immediately spread to YouTube. And especially with the age of consent in this case, which is 14, is really very less countries have it, and even those countries have very specific and tight laws in most cases to ensure that the age of consent is 14. So your interest or age of consent would be only valid in your region, not on YouTube, because on YouTube two people of same age can exist from different regions. Thus, therefore, the mental development and other factors would be way more different. So, thus, if they were to be exposed to this kind of content, then the one who isn't as developed as, let's say, someone of 14 years old in that region would be harmed by this because of the effects that content would have on their brain, because of obvious exposure to the explicit content. Thus, even if it were to be someone who isn't a pedophile, who has made CP and made grape polls of those minors, this would still be put into question. Though I believe that unlike this creep, most of them would understand their misunderstanding of translating their cultural tradition onto YouTube, and either won't make such foul posts in the first place, or at the very least, acknowledge their mistake and change their ways. Secondly, last time I checked, age of consent doesn't make you consume CP and have a child of being around 4 to 7 years old together with a grown man. And regardless of age, it doesn't explain making great pose of minors, let alone people in general. So this alone proves that his excuse of age of consent is absolutely pathetic. And I'm pretty sure that this is not an absolute statement, but I absolutely believe that he doesn't even know the proper context of age of consent and how it actually works. And if it does, then it really makes him look even bad, because he never chose to explain in any defense anyway that why this would be okay in his area, because again, there's a lot of nuance to this. And lastly, with this guy being 17 years old, this man seems totally okay with suggesting consent of a 14-year-old to a 17-year-old, again, without any context. If someone in authority told me that it's bad to brush my teeth and shower, no matter how dumb it is, I'm not gonna follow it. Though by his own logic, it seems that he absolutely follows that logic. That stems from his actions alone proving that. And I'm not done yet. Lastly, but not the least, I'll expose on how Legand 2.0 chooses to react the allegations, and how he tells others that they have mental issues and also has no issues commenting on someone's comment who clearly is uncomfortable, and how both their new channel still continues to spread their disgusting actions, and also how they absolutely clarify to us that their quote-unquote jokes on great posts were not jokes, that they absolutely believe in it. So he uploads a short of a 14-year-old Ellie and 15-year-old Jimmy in a VIS edit, basically, who wins in a fight. Normal in most cases, but for anyone who now knows anything about this man, as you can predict, this short will be no exception. As you can see, he refers to Ellie in quite a disgusting manner, both through words and the clip. Censor for the video, but again, the picture will be in the doc, linked in the description. And what's more concerning is the origin of this clip. Now, to be fair, I'm not a fan of these games, but I kind of doubt that these games will have these kind of scenes. Definitely not the first game with a 14-year-old, leaving two possibilities. Either the clip is brought from Ahead Games, where Ellie is an adult, thus allowing for such a scene to be made by the developers, or worse, this clip is not original and is made by one of the degenerates, possibly even by this man. And then, even if not, how does this man have access to such a clip, assuming it's not an original clip? Well, feel free to comment in the comments, if possibly Ahead Games have brought an official scene where Ellie is an adult and not a minor. Regardless, this action is still foul, and following by the end of the edit, with him having no problems saying that Jimmy, quote-unquote, molests her and makes her his bitch, because that's totally something normal and totally not sexual harassment. And I know some people might say that, but, Zan-Von, they do say things like that in VIS. Well, first of all, even if they say that's already foul, and second of all, with the context already established about this guy and his actions, again, to assume that this is just a joke is, very less likely, if totally not impossible. And lastly, basically their character. In one of my posts, I got a comment from someone who stated that they were uncomfortable, naturally since the post talked about the disgusting actions of Legand 2.0, or Legend. Now, instead of just leaving the comment be as it is, or trying to give a proper reply which addresses my accusations in a meaningful capacity, this guy decides to comment under the user's comment, even after them stating that they aren't uncomfortable. Thus, it would be obvious that if this guy comments under the post, then it would make them more uncomfortable. Exactly what he proceeded to do. Obviously, it's gotten backlash. Now, there's a thread of messages below where basically someone tells Legend 2.0 to off themselves quite a few times, and while I personally do not condone telling people to off themselves, even discussing people like him in most cases because of how it can affect their family and the precedent it can set for others to follow, Legend's response to this is appalling. He first of all calls other person a dick rider for believing everything I'm saying, despite the fact that he has failed to address my points in any meaningful capacity. And second, he tells the person who asked him to off himself that you got mental issues. Well, it's not the best action to tell others to off themselves. It's funny how Legend chooses to respond to this despite his own action revealing his own mindset a lot. Because telling others they have issues is totally such a helpful way to both de-escalate this conflict and also totally an ethical way to address someone, right? Totally. Given the previous examples of his defiance and blatant lack of care for others' views by telling them to shut up and also practically laughing under the post, and with everything else established, I have all the reasons to believe that these comments have all the malicious intent. And finally, again, to finally address that anyone from who might try to defend his rape jokes by saying that they're jokes, that they don't actually believe in what he's saying, even after the mountains of evidence already having proven a lot of his guilt, know that this picture, this screenshot, this man just clarified himself that this is not a joke, and he all clearly says they are all a fan of me, but he absolutely believes in raping minors and having CP, and is also proud, thinking that they all are fans of his. To say this all speaks for itself is an understatement. To call this abhorrent isn't enough. To call this man a leech on society would be insult to all the leeches. A leech who has access to CP and sent it to Sinister, made grape polls on minors, proudly claims that his mention of grape on minors aren't jokes, tells people that they are dick riders or have mental issues when met with backlash, and he basically hides his predatory action depicting a 14-year-old in a sexual manner on his new channel behind the pathetic defense of age of consent, despite it not holding up for the reasons I've outlined, laughs at people when they celebrate an exit, and also tells people to shut up when confronted, and acts someone and tries to defend himself, and has no problem spreading this degeneracy on this platform, and a lot more which I have basically mentioned in this video. Every second, he spends this platform unchecked, he will be a threat to everyone. And I have to clarify a situation on why I'm, making an entire video against this guy, apart from obviously being a pedo, because I'm not against pedophilic people on its own. And let me clarify again. If someone is, attracted to minors, but they know it's wrong, and they're actively trying to seek help, I'm not going to be against them, and quite opposite, I'm actually going to try to help them get help as much as possible. That's not to say that, them being attracted to minors is not messed up. It would still be messed up, but if they're choosing to get help, then shutting them off or quote-unquote exposing them would only isolate these people and make living for them worse. With that being said, the Legend having CP and everything else that I've outlined up till this point, he clearly seems not only okay and believing firmly that it's totally okay to grape minors, but he also seems to be okay to spreading that belief on internet directly or indirectly, even towards disgusting and foul actions. Especially with the context given, I think it was extremely important to bring this guy on and expose him for what he is. Because if we let this guy continue to spread this kind of, culture, and not only just culture but disgusting mindset, it can also potentially affect anyone else obviously because if they are exposed to this kind of content, and especially if they're in the wrong age group, they can be affected because the effect this content would have on their perception. I mean, even adults get affected by pornography, then let alone teens and youth. So overall, that's why I'm specifically making an entire video against this guy. So some people might try to defend this guy by saying that he's talking about raping fictional characters, not real life people. which is just pathetic, because this kind of content like child pornography or pornography on its own objectifies the women or whoever is being portrayed in a sexual manner, and is harmful for the brain because of how it changes the wiring of the brain, how it desensitizes brain to the act of sex, and how it also warps the perception of how a person views women or anyone depicted in sexual manner as such, and how they can be disconnected from reality themselves. For example, they can try to justify their act through various disgusting ways because of how pornography shapes their view. So not only the fact that this guy consumes CP speaks a lot about his own mindset, it also with the evidence outlined that he is totally okay with believing in the grave jokes, that this guy is a threat. And note, I'm aware that intent or fantasies don't always translate to actions, or that the fantasies in themselves don't always translate to genuine beliefs of an individual. But just think about this, please. Think about this for a moment. An individual who clarifies that he's totally okay with making grave jokes, desperately tries to defend himself through an alternate account, tells people to shut up when confronted about his actions, and also again continues to spread this disgusting actions despite already having been banned, and also being offered, by the way, chances to defend himself but he never really took the chance, and he basically just tries to ignore and has absolutely no remorse, and even basically laughs at people when confronted again about his return on this platform, and basically showing his defiance instead of any remorse or even like any thoughtfulness. So I believe I'm absolutely in the right to say that this guy is a threat to anyone who approaches him. So please report this guy in a manner similar on the screen, which I will be showing, the how to report this guy in exact way. Feel free to pause the video, list his actions, mention my channel in the report, and let YouTube know that they can look into the evidence of my channel and of course his channel for everything he's done. Report his posts and his short as well, outlining his actions of being a pedophile. Reject anything this man posts and call him out for it. Share this video as much as possible, and so that we can stop such creeps, and send the message to other creeps that this kind of behavior will not be tolerated. And let me state this, no matter how many times this guy comes back, I will go after him and others of such nature. And especially with this guy not showing any signs to change, and also having consumed CP and sending to others, I really hope and will hope to get away to send him through prison to international cyber reports or any other means. If anyone who has any idea about how to make an international cyber report, please you can feel free to approach in Discord. It will be in the description, or even a profile on YouTube. And also feel free to hit the comments to let me know. And for anyone who's helped in any manner, thank you. Words can't express my gratitude for all. And that's really I gotta say. Stay safe from such predators and creep, everyone. And anyone who genuinely is, pedophilic, but hasn't committed an act and generally wants to seek help, I sincerely hope you do seek help, and that you sincerely are able to overcome it. And that's really all for today. Until next time, I'm out.